Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and it is truly Big Ten After Dark because Ohio State and Nebraska did their best to make us stay up as late as they possibly could make us stay up. But we're here for you to talk about it all, whether you're listening live or you're listening after the fact. We appreciate you being here. I got my guy Burke with me from Often Daunted to recap everything tonight. Burke, how we doing?
Doing
Also,
all
Burke,
right.
I can hear your
My
TV in the
bad.
background.
Sorry. Just wrapping up that Ohio State game. I have to imagine the Buckeye fans are a little more happy than the Hoosier fans. Nonetheless, proud of how the Hoosiers played today. We'll get into it later. Just happy to be on the show. Love coming on, recapping here on the Big Ten Huddle, and appreciate the time.
Hey, we're glad to have you here. And yes, we will get into the Indiana game. I think first we have to talk about the Ohio State Nebraska game. Burke, I don't know if it was possible to have a worse officiated game. I am not one that complains about the refs, and I am not going to use this time to complain about the refs for either team. This team was, or this team, this game was officiated atrociously on both sides. Overall, in this game, Ohio State wins 116 to 114 for Nebraska. What grade would you give the referees in this one, Burke?
It's a blind grade. Usually in the Big Ten, you're going to start at a D. Okay, so you're going to start at the D. They have to do positive to work up from there.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this was just ugly, ugly, ugly. Officiating. You saw it throughout. I'm not going to complain about it. It goes both ways. That's part of Big Ten basketball. That's why it's the slow, beautiful game it is. We're all playing the cards we're dealt.
It's true. It's true. It is the slow, beautiful game, whatever you want to call it at this point. My word. I don't know how players play with that. From the screaming in the face that Sean Stewart did to Connor Essegian, which somehow didn't get called for a technical, to just every single time Ohio State touches Nebraska, they get a foul call, and then Nebraska they they get called for everything on the other end. They had three players fouled out on this one. If I'm a Nebraska fan, I am livid after this
I
game with
I
everything that went
said
on.
we were talking before, and I said, yeah, it seems like these officials get into a game, and the Big Ten players, they push the envelope 2 minutes into it. There's a call made, usually the wrong call, and then they're playing makeup call for the rest of the 38 minutes of this one.
It's true. It's true. They're playing makeup call the entire time. It's ridiculous. All right,
That's
we can
conference
we
wide. Yeah.
yeah, that is conference wide. We can complain about the rest for so long if we wanted to, but I do think we should probably talk some actual basketball at some point. In this game, Bruce Thornton plays 48 minutes, scores 29 points, followed by Micah Parrish, 22 points. John Mobley had 20 points. Oh, Devin Royal had 22 points as well. It's kind of classic Ohio State. They had their big three, big four slash big four, just kind of go crazy and provide all the offense for the team. Aaron Bradshaw gets 8 points as well, but this was a game that went into two overtimes, and you had four players with 20 points or more. You had only one other player with 13 points, and he only played 18 minutes in the game. Bryce Williams does go crazy. It's 43 points this game. Juwan Gary 24 points, but at the end of the day, they Nebraska just couldn't stop Ohio State on offense. It didn't matter how bad the sets were for Ohio State. It didn't matter how many terrible shots Ohio State threw up. If they threw up a terrible shot and missed it, they got the offensive rebound. And then sometimes if they threw up a terrible shot, they just made it. And if you're in Nebraska, you're just like, okay, I guess that's fine. And then you go down on the other end and run some good offense. What were your thoughts, Burke?
Just the front court defense from Nebraska. It's utterly non-existent. That rink masked out injury out the gate of the season, absolutely gutting to this potential of this roster out the gate. His absence absolutely felt here. Overall in the game out of Nebraska, Juwan Gary he is the toughest guy in my mind in this conference. That dude is all grit. Him, and Bryce Williams absolutely willing Nebraska to the end of this one. Bryce Williams, I don't know if you said it, 43 points in this.
Yeah.
Like whenever Ohio State was pushing the envelope, he had a response. Like he had a response that, I mean, pressed this game out to OT, double overtime, and yeah, it's just a shame that they are missing the catalyst of what was going to be the team. But nonetheless, like Bryce Williams, it's fun watching a guy try to be the hero and absolutely, I mean, deliver. He is delivering because I think that was his, 9 of 10 of his last games with 20 points. Like he's pushing the envelope to become a Husker hero because they need one. There's an absolute vacuum of that right now in Nebraska, and he's looking to fill the role.
Yeah, I mean this is where Nebraska's offense is coming from. I mean Connor Sejan and Juwan Gary are providing offense as well. Don't get me wrong. Connor Sejan goes 3 for 7 from three in this one, and Nebraska actually shoots 43% from three in the entire game. I mean, it wasn't a bad 3-point shooting performance. And in overtime, they were 3 for 4. So, I mean, this team got they got plays, especially from Bryce Williams. In overtime, they had 25 total points. 20 of them came from Bryce Williams in overtime. I mean, just absolutely putting the team on his back offensively. I didn't feel like it was like that the entire game. I felt like Nebraska was running some good sets. I felt like they were getting under the basket. I do think we need to take Aaron Bradshaw's 7-footer card away from him after Sam Hoiberg, scored on him. Dude,
Bodied
directly
him.
under the basket, Sam
Yeah.
Hoiberg puts the ball up and scores over Aaron Bradshaw. Like, dude's 7-1. He can't be listed at 7-1 anymore, right?
No, that was jarring. And it happened during the IU timeout, so it was like one of the main plays I can remember of this one.
Yeah. We'll get to Indiana, Oregon in just a minute. I see John's already getting the comments in there. We'll get to that in just a minute. I do want to talk about like NCAA tournament chances really fast. So Nebraska in this one needed this one. I felt like to solidify themselves in the NCAA tournament. Now they have Iowa next. They should win that one with the way Iowa's been playing lately. But they also should have beat Minnesota. They also, struggled with Penn State. They struggled with Northwestern. Like, for me, this is a Nebraska team that, although they've found their alpha in Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary is a good, second piece to him. Like, this is a Nebraska team right now that is just not finding the wins they need to find to really solidify themselves. At one point, I think like a week or two ago, Nebraska had like an 83% chance to make the NCAA tournament according to ESPN. That's gone now. They could still make it in, but they need help. They need some other bubble teams to do some bad things in this one. Ohio State's probably in. Indiana is probably in. Whichever one wins between those two, what is it, Sunday they play? Whichever one wins between those two, they're in the tournament, I think. But overall, like this game did not disappoint. It was ridiculous, but also entertaining, also crazy. You disagree with anything I had to say there about the tournament chances?
No, absolutely. I mean, both teams desperately needed this one. It's just Nebraska needed it desperately. With this loss, you seem like they're all but out. Like you're 7-11 now, or I mean, are they 7-12 after that?
7-12, yeah.
Yeah, 7-12. Like this ain't the SEC. That ain't gonna get in this year. Out of the Big Ten, and just a tough hill for Ohio State. Like they're right there. A win at Indiana will get them in. They are still on the bubble has been performing so poorly that even if they go into Indiana and lose respectively, I think both teams get in. Like I just think with the strength of the conference, there's unless there's just conference bid stealers abound everywhere. Luckily, these mid majors have built tournaments to limit those this season. I think that we're gonna have a shot for both these guys to get in, but if they go into Assembly Hall and just get boat raced, then it could be another story. But I mean, this is again, we're saying all this without the story of the Big Ten tournament. So
yeah,
you got to take everything with a grain of salt.
I've kind of resigned to the fact that I don't think the committee takes the Big Ten tournament into much account. It's played so late, and like we've seen Big Ten teams last year. We saw Ohio State nearly beat Illinois, and I felt like they were, kind of a tournament team. I didn't think they were going to get in, but I thought they would be close. They weren't close. They weren't even mentioned as one of the last four or one of the first four out or anything. Like they weren't even close in their mind. Well, Ohio State kind of did their best work to, get there with some strong showings in the Big Ten tournament in those two games. But I don't know. We'll have to see. It all comes down to the selection committee and how much they weigh the Big Ten tournament. You're right, because Nebraska's going to have the opportunity to get a win, a good win or two. But right now, Ohio State and Indiana, they're going to be playing for the ninth spot in the Big Ten tournament, which, if you know anything about that ninth spot, that gets you a bye. And in my opinion, you cannot win the Big Ten tournament unless you're in the top 9 seeds.
I like it. It's going down this weekend, man. It's going to be a good watch.
It is. It is going to be a good watch. Hopefully not as late as this one, because I do need to go to bed at some point.
No, I think it's a mid-afternoon one. I think we're all good there.
Yeah, well, you never know. Could be 5 overtimes. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how long it goes. Let's talk a little bit more about this Ohio State Nebraska game, and then we'll move on to Indiana, Oregon. What do you make of this Ohio State team? Right, they have 3 or 4 guys that basically score all their points for them. It feels a little bit like what I was talking about Purdue being early on in the season. Purdue has gotten a little bit more production. I mean, this last game, we'll talk about them here soon too. They got more production from some role players there, but I mean, with how many guys are injured and how many guys are out for this Ohio State team and just how much foul trouble they get in, it feels like Ohio State's not going to win a game unless A, they shoot over 35% from 3, and B, they get strong production from those 3 or 4 guys. Like if any of those guys score less than 10 points, it feels like Ohio State loses.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of questions with Ohio State, with the way their seasons went, with the way the roster's built, but I feel like the one thing they got going for them, like crucial, huge, is Bruce Thornton's your main guy. Your main guy is the main ball handler. That solves a lot of problems. Like that can maybe not solve problems, but it limits the problems that present themselves. Like if your main ball handler is the guy you trust most. So I mean, he's liable to have a heroic night. So I mean, they are an unpredictably dangerous team in my mind. I'm not comfortable with them with having to end the season with them. Like them at home with the Oregon in March, like this was a tough last 2 for the Hoosiers, but
yeah. Yeah, well, let's move on and talk about the Hoosiers, because the Hoosiers do fall to Oregon 73-64. Now, it was a road game. This was at Oregon, so I do think Indiana's going to get some consideration there. And although Oregon has struggled in the Big Ten overall, this was still a team that went undefeated in the out of conference. There for a while, they had the most quad 1 wins of anybody in the Big Ten. I don't think that's that way anymore. Yeah, Michigan State has the most after their incredible run, but they're tied for the second most with Michigan with 8 right now. I don't know if that's been updated. Has that been updated with the Indiana game? Let me look. Yes. Okay. Well, Indiana was a quad 2 game anyway because it was at home. So, So Indiana falls in this one 73-64. Let's talk a little Oregon first. I know you're itching to talk Indiana, Burke, but let's talk a little Oregon first since they won, and then we'll get into Indiana. Bamba scores 13 points in this one, but it was the leading score of Jackson Shellstad, who just chucked up like a 35-footer and somehow it went in after he shot pretty bad all night. Gave me a reminiscence of that Iowa game where he just chucked the ball up at the end of the shot clock, and they counted it. They did not count it in that one, but this one counted. I don't know exactly what to make of this Oregon team. They're not exactly efficient, but they also play good defense, and Indiana, I don't want to say Indiana squandered it, but I mean, obviously Oregon won the game. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are Oregon is crazy athletic. They are crazy long. The team, the way they can change on the defensive end is unmatched. Honestly, like it's TJ Bamba is an athletic freak. What he does defensively just to cause havoc is insane. Yeah, in a game that you think the Oregon Ducks would shoot 24% from 3, I would think that the Hoosiers would win. Yeah,
And
Nate Biddle. I thought he was.
less than
Yeah,
40% from the field too.
yeah, Nate Biddle. I mean, 3 for 10. You hold him for 3 for 10 from the floor. Yeah, I thought that he was going to be the guy that damaged us the most. Jackson Shellstad, that kid's quickness is crazy. Like they had that one clip of him. He had that one play where he runs the floor in 4 seconds, and it's like Anthony Leal is a defensive. He's great defensively this season, and he just left him in the dust, like road runner on him. It was crazy.
Yeah, this Oregon team, to me, it really came down to they capitalized on their offensive rebounds, right? They got about the same number of offensive rebounds as Indiana in this one, 15-13. But you look at the second chance points, and Oregon had 23, Indiana had 13. It's a 9-point win for Oregon in this one. Now, I I just said I'm not going to complain about the refs. I did feel like there was a little bit of, some stuff going on under the basket. Maybe should have been called for Indiana. I'm not going to complain about it too much, but at the end
We
of the
don't do
day,
that.
like, yeah, we're not going to complain
We
about it.
don't do that.
Yeah, we're not going to complain about it,
No.
but I do think it's relevant enough to mention that I Indiana was playing tough down low. They were getting physical with them.
And I want to say whoever like took Indiana with the -6.5, any gamblers out there, whoever took them have to be furious because the story, like the garbage points in this do not tell how close this one was to the end.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, I mean that can I start that as a way to talk about
Yeah.
Indiana a little? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just Mike Woodson end game unawareness, like the inability to know whether or not to foul defensively when we're down 4 points.
Like a minute left in Miles Rice fouls when they're down what?
Yeah.
Four?
Yeah,
Two or four?
That's end game management. And it's like, hey, we need to do something about this. Oh, wait, we already did. It's already in place. So it's just a matter of time until hopefully those are gone and out of the program.
Well, yeah, it just comes down to coaching, right? Like situational awareness. Know what to do in certain situations. Now, I don't think that was like the biggest thing.
No.
I mean, Indiana still had a chance to come back after Shellstad hit those free throws, but as far as I'm concerned, like there is just an aspect of this Indiana team that kind of loses it if things don't go the way they're planning at the end of the game. And the way they were planning was for McKenzie and Baco to hit shots and save them. And instead, Mbako finishes with 8 points, 2 of 10 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3.
Which is crazy for them to have planned that. I mean, it's crazy because McKenzie is the ultimate hot or cold guy. Like you can tell in the first 3 minutes of his game what his stat line is going to be that day. He's either going to stuff it or it's going to be barren. And I mean, he started this game 0 for 4, that fourth one airballing. The first 3 he had taken. I mean, credit to him. He had hit 2 big threes, including like one that I think tied it at like 49 points, getting this one really close. But just that with what he is bringing defensively at times, like the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And I mean, with the chance to win the game, like I just don't know why it was his shot to take. Whose decision that was, who drew that up. Got to go to a hotter hand in that moment, I think. But I'm not the coach, so.
Umar Ballo does finish with 10 and 12, gets himself a double-double in this one. Burke, I did want to bring up, I felt like Mike Woodson played Ballo and Renew together more in this one. Ballo, excuse me. Sorry, it's midnight, so I'm tired. Ballo had 30 minutes in this one. Malik Renew had 27 minutes in this one. Did you like that Woodson was playing Ballo and Renew together more, or did you not like it? What were your thoughts?
My thoughts initially were, what are we doing? Because like the small ball has worked for us so well over this success we've had over the season. But then like towards the end of the first half, when Indiana was going on a 12-0 run to, I mean, get it within competitive distance, like we were running the 2 big lineup, and it was really working against Oregon.
So it was working because Oregon kept doubling Ballo, and it came at like the exact same time every single time. Like they never switched up the timing of it, As soon as the ball hit the floor for Ballo and he took a step, the double team came. And Ballo almost started timing it, and he was able to get the ball to Renew half the time, and Renew would be down low. So
Yeah, so the too big is going to work if the defense is extremely predictable.
right,
So I mean, it was jarring to see it work as successfully as it really did at times in this, but I mean, I don't want to say from here on out we need to get back to that. When Indiana's running and gunning, like running the floor, when Trey is in the pick and roll, when we are just moving, like that isn't what it is. It's a 4-guard lineup, and Indiana's playing a little smaller, a lot faster.
yeah. I do think when a team has one big like Nate Biddle and you can force him to go for separate guys, I do think that it makes sense in those situations. But overall, in this game, it felt like it was too much. Went
Yeah,
too much, I felt
yeah,
like, and overall, you should have been hitting your threes in this one, and they did. Like they nearly shot 40% from three in this one, but those threes just never really seemed to come when they needed them when they needed them most. And Oregon pulls away at the end of the game, and that's all she wrote.
yeah. Every single guy, if you have the ball in your hands on Oregon, like you are a threat to score.
Yeah.
Their production's extremely well distributed. And yeah, Dana Altman has a type, man. Long and athletic, can play the hell out of some defense, and is not liable to just go over in a night. And it's crazy that that's a recipe for winning basketball. But yeah.
I think I saw a stat on the screen since the 2010-2011 season, Oregon has the most March wins out of anybody in the country. Are we prepared to call Dana Altman Mr. March at this point? I mean, I know Izzo, what he's done, but like Philip just pointed out, Oregon now has 6 conference wins in a row, best streak since the 2016-2017 season. I know not all of those were in March, but one of them was.
January, February, Altman.
Yeah. I mean, so we'll see. I'm excited to see what Oregon does in the Big Ten tournament, because I do think, last year Pac-12 tournament, they kind of saved their season. They won that. They got to the NCAA tournament. I mean, I'll be honest. Like if Oregon can find some more efficiency, some more consistency in games, this is probably a dark horse team to win the Big Ten tournament. They're a top 9 team in the conference. They can do it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to say on Oregon as a whole, still the Oregon floor is wild and it's terrible. It's a home court advantage that honestly the Big Ten shouldn't put up with, if you ask me. Also, the Ducks name is good because it's original, but like Webfoots is so much better. They shouldn't have ever changed the name from Webfoots. So much more original, has actual like local ties. That kind of stuff is just way better. But other than that, Indiana fans can't be upset with how Indiana played. They fought their tails off, and you would have liked to go in and cement the national tournament invite, but nonetheless, Hoosiers look good. I'm excited for senior night. Excited to really cement it at home.
I will say good news for Hoosiers is that Vanderbilt is down 10 currently with about a minute left to Arkansas at home. So,
yep, there you go. Good news for
Vanderbilt.
Ohio State.
Vanderbilt, another bubble team. I think Ohio State's fine after they got that Nebraska win. I think Indiana is going to be fine too. Like there's just been too much craziness with the bubble
Yeah.
that I don't think a loss at Oregon is going to be as bad as some other losses out there potentially. So I think they're fine, but definitely you want to win this Ohio State Indiana game very badly, because it's almost going to cement you into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, at that point, it would be shocking if they left us out.
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else on that before we move on, Bert?
Let me see. Last things on that. No, hopeful for the next game. None like Hoosiers are still on. We're all right. That we're shaking that one off.
Hey, you got Anthony Leal. Oh, we didn't talk about that. Anthony Leal. Big Ten play or Big Ten not player of the year. Big Ten defensive player of the year talk or just Big Ten defensive first team talk?
I don't know because I feel like most of the voters are stat sheet readers. They ain't watching these games. And what he doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Like this kid's plus minus is through the roof. I know plus minus isn't the end all be all stat, can't be, but just everything he does absolutely affects winning basketball. His climb in minutes and the climb in Indiana's winning ways have a direct correlation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the recency of the defensive player of the year award, and I was talking to people about this last time, like you have to be exceptional in some statistical area. And that's why midway through the season I actually picked Brooks Barnheiser to win it because he was scoring 17 points a game, which doesn't really matter for defensive player of the year, but it is impressive that on top of that, he had 7 defensive rebounds per game. He had over 2 steals per game and over a block per game. Like the dude was fantastic in those areas, but unfortunately he got hurt, so he's not going to win it now. You're probably looking at either Braden Smith or Ace Baldwin. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I know John and Philip are in the chat, so if you guys think somebody different, but it's probably one of those two that's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, Niederhaus is probably up there. Biddle's probably up there. Now that I say that, it's probably going to be Biddle. 2.2 blocks per game for Biddle, and that's more of a contender for the Big Ten right now than Penn State is. So, yeah, it's going to depend. Do they go with blocks or do they go with steals? But Leo should be in the conversation.
Yeah, but like I said, it doesn't show up in the box score, and far too many voters just checking those out each morning.
It's true. It's true. All right, let's talk some Rutgers and Purdue. I contend, Burke, that a confident Rutgers team is top half of the Big Ten good. The issue here is that Purdue just destroyed any confidence Rutgers had at the end of the first half by just going crazy from 3. And then I thought, well, maybe if they cool down to start the second half, Rutgers will get going. It did not happen. Purdue continued their hot shooting at the beginning of the second half and just, I mean, put Rutgers in a coffin and buried them. There was no way they were getting out.
Yeah. I mean, that's about as good as you could hope your senior night goes. Caleb first on his way out, like absolutely crazy. You honestly should have just let him give the speech like halfway into the second half, I would imagine. Just hand him a mic.
Give him a microphone while the last 2 minutes of the game are being played.
Big 3 dominated the massive 2.
Yeah, they did. Trickhoff and Wren only had 16 points in this one. It was the combination of Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. They both had 7 3-pointers. They combined for 14 3-pointers between the two of them. They both scored 23 points. They looked like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, vintage version of those guys out there in this one. Braden Smith was checking up shots from the logo, albeit a big logo at Purdue, but still from the logo, he was really feeling himself. Fletcher Lawyer feeling himself as well. I mean, when I was talking about Final Four caliber teams in the other day, got some flack for some people saying, or that I said, Purdue has the potential to be a Final Four caliber team. And more than anything, it's because Fletcher Lawyer is the type of player who can win you a game that you should not win in the tournament just because he gets hot. And Braden Smith is up there as well too. Now it's easier to do at Mackey, and they're not going to be at Mackey, but still, like this is a guy who has done this before, not at Mackey. So he has that ability. So there's going to be a game at some point in the tournament that Fletcher Lawyer is going to start being really good, and he's going to either win them a game they shouldn't win or just about win them a game they shouldn't win. And if you have that threat on your team, that is scary for any team that's going to face them.
But on the exact opposite end, like you would think that Rutgers has that threat. Like you have the NBA talent. Like you think that either of those guys are liable to win you those games. And like you see that happen all the time with these top NBA draft picks. Like they will teams, like there are games where they're like, oh yeah, he won that game. Like, oh, that's the Dylan Harper game. Like, but they haven't had one of those like this season. You would think that, I mean, no shade to them, but it's just like
Right.
that's pretty typical to somebody of their caliber, just two guys. I mean, they're both on the team.
Yeah,
And
I
I mean,
mean,
they have huge stat lines, don't get me wrong, but I mean, usually there is a iconic game that has like an iconic winning performance, but they just haven't had one of those moments yet. This seemed like the perfect scenario. Dylan Harper in Indiana playing spoiler to the boiler. But yeah.
I mean, I had thought in my mind, I never said it, but I had thought in my mind that this could be, a potential spoiler game in the season, kind of late toward it, because Purdue has Illinois coming up. That's a rivalry that's been developing. Are they going to look, too much ahead to that? And in addition to that, like Rutgers just has those guys that are NBA lottery pick potential type of players who can win them a game. But like you said, I can't recall a game this season where either Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper just like won it for him. Like, I mean, maybe I'm just completely misremembering, but as far as I'm concerned, like I go to Ace Bailey's game recaps, like there's not really a game that he just like flat out won it for him. Northwestern, maybe he scored 37 in that one, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You
I
would
think,
you would expect something different from two NBA lottery picks.
yeah. And I mean, that just speaks to just the hot seat that Peichel has to find himself in after all this. Like, this is the single most hype season in the history of Rutgers. This is the most ammo he's been given, and I mean, he's done a whole lot more with a whole lot less.
Would you fire Peichel?
Would I? Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the most hyped season, and you had to get, as important as it is to recruit guys, it is just as important to recruit the guys you currently have. And they had a defensive wagon. Like, no matter what they had, Rutgers didn't have much, but they had defense. That was the Peichel way. And unfortunately, the inability to retain Clifford Omarui and Mawat Mag, like those guys would have changed the course of this season. Those guys being able to retain the identity of a Peichel system. When these guys came onto campus, Peichel had to blow it up. He had to coach entirely differently. He's never had this talent. And unfortunately, it just hasn't been handled right.
Would a Clifford, a Morier, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, Mawat Mag, Jeremiah Williams starting lineup be a top
That's
4 team in the Big Ten?
disgusting. That's a disgusting team you just listed.
But
Like
that starting
that's,
lineup with these role players that
I
Rutgers
mean,
has,
dude, once you get down to playing 6 guys, you'll figure it out. That's a squad.
I think they'd be top 4 too.
Yeah. Yeah. That I mean, this year's Big Ten, that team's competing. That team's contending.
That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah.
All right, going forward, Purdue, Purdue lost 4 straight. They come back. They beat UCLA. This game, Rutgers giving them a good game. They just got absolutely unconscious from 3. Looking really good for them going into this Illinois game. Illinois is also looking really good too. You have any thoughts on Purdue and what they're bringing into this Illinois game after this one? I mean, do you think they can continue to hot shooting, or do you think that's just a Mackey thing? They're going to have to grind. Like, what's your thoughts here?
I mean, awesome game. Purdue at Illinois. Like, no love lost between those two.
I know,
Like,
right? I can't wait.
yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a good game. Braden Smith in that environment is going to be absolutely insufferable. It's gonna be awesome. What I think Purdue's figuring it out again. They were in tailspin mode, and I'm glad that the Hoosiers got to pile on during that tailspin mode. But like this game was a perfect example of proven system versus NBA talent, or just like talent, and Painter's system more often than not like finds its level.
Yeah, I mean, even though Braden Smith is probably, Big Ten Player of the Year, I still think Rutgers had the 2 most. Is that disrespectful to say they had the 2 most talented players on the floor?
Um, no, I mean, no. Those guys are, yeah,
I mean,
they're
when you take into account measurables, athleticism, everything else, like Rutgers had the two highest ceiling players on the floor. I don't know if I want to
oh
say
yeah,
best, but
easily,
highest ceiling
easily.
players
Yeah.
on the floor. And Purdue just absolutely boat raced them because
Yeah, and
they
it's
got dudes.
crazy. Yeah, you say that, but they only have a dude. They only have dude more. Like
Oh yeah, that's true.
it's
One
not
dude
like
more.
they're like it's the supporting squads of Purdue's super deep. Like they just had one more dude. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
They did get some production tonight from Miles Colvin. He gave them 9. Jakari Harris gave them 11. CJ Cox gave them 6. So I mean, it's better. Like there's been games where those dudes haven't given you 11 combined,
Yeah.
and Jakari Harris had it tonight.
Jakari
So
Harris shooting, I mean, 2 for 4 from deep, huge for them.
listen, I said about a month or two ago, he's one of the top 10 most important freshmen. Like I took him over CJ Cox because I felt like Harris needed to be a better shooter and he needed to play better defense if he was going to be in there, right?
Yeah.
Um I have officially declared Cam Heide one of the most, and this might be disrespectful, but actually it will be very disrespectful, and that's fine. I've officially declared Cam Heide as one of the most useless players in the Big Ten.
Hey,
What is he doing out there, dude?
when Bro can make a highlight.
I guess 11 minutes, no points, no shots, 1 rebound, 2 fouls.
Yeah,
What
that's
are you
a
doing?
I call that the old Jordan Geronimo stat line.
Tony Snell out there, man. 1 turnover. Sorry. Also had 1 turnover. He negated that 1 rebound with 1 turnover.
Yeah, that's
Like,
tough.
I don't like I get it. Like Painter is looking for something from Heidi and Colvin. But at this point I'm just running with Colvin, man. Like I'm done with Heidi at this point. Unless somebody's in foul trouble, I'm done with Heidi.
Yeah, that's I mean, 10 minutes, 0 shots taken. That's just
1 rebound, 1 turnover, 2 fouls. Like there was a sequence when he like stumbled for the ball and then right down the floor on the next one he got an over the back call when he like clearly had no chance, and then right after that his guy got the rebound and he goes up for the rebound on the defensive end and knocks the ball, or on the offensive no, the defensive end, and knocks the ball out of bounds out of his own player's hand. Like
yeah.
dude knows his stat line isn't very good, so he's pressing to try and get a rebound, but
Yeah, and I mean, with the way things went down the line here, that is a crazy stat line for this game.
yeah, I mean, a game where they just absolutely dominated.
You're out here getting outscored by Brian Waddell.
Yeah, and I say
No.
that like he's not been that awful the last few games. Like he did have 9 rebounds against UCLA with 3 points, so like it's not like he was completely useless in that one. But I don't know, like they have to find some consistency, and I mean, against Michigan, he had how many minutes did he have? I can't see how many minutes he had. Oh no, against Michigan, he had 17 minutes, 0 points, 0 assists, 1 rebound, 1 steal, 1 foul. So I don't
I
know.
mean, yeah, that's
I
tough.
think there's better options than him, but that's just me.
Personally, hashtag like re-sign Heidi. That's yeah, but yeah.
I never
Thank
want to
God
put a
he doesn't go to
player.
the portal much. Thank God he doesn't go to the portal
I was gonna
much.
say I don't ever want to put a player in the portal, and first kind of had some struggles last season, and he came back and look at what he's
Yeah,
been like. He's been the man that helped them fill in that 5 spot. And you can say the 5 spot is still a weakness, sure, but it's not as much as it was. You're not playing TKR there in the 5 spot where he's out of position and not nearly as effective. So, all right, Burke. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, no. I'm optimistic about the Hoosiers' chances moving forward. I'm optimistic about Ohio State, even when the Hoosiers decimate them this weekend. But yeah, it's just this has been a crazy fun week of basketball. Like the Big Ten is kicking off March right. The schedule makers, praise be. Everything's coming out Big Ten because I mean bottom you have to care about with just the way everything's shaken out. Rutgers absolutely has. I mean, Rutgers feeling the ramifications of this game this late in the season. Awesome.
Yep. Yeah. And Rutgers should make the Big Ten tournament, although they're, I think, 14-16 right now. Is that right? Or 14
14,
and 15?
16, 7 and 12 in conference.
Yeah, they got 7 wins, and that's what you need to make the Big Ten tournament, in my mind. So, all right,
Okay.
everybody, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. I'll try to have another episode tomorrow night after the games, and then Thursday night got an episode with the Michigan State Iowa game. I'll be doing that with Anthony from I forget what website he's with, Spartan Wire or something like that. I should know. But yeah, we'll have him on. Burke, let me ask one more thing, and then we'll get out of here. Okay, one more thing.
Okay.
Where can people find you at?
You can find me everywhere across all socials at Often Daunted. I have a podcast that I post about once a week, just recapping the Hoosiers week in total, sharing some of the conference news, some of my thoughts on that on YouTube, across all social or audio platforms, wherever you may be. Looking forward to having JR on this next one, previewing the Ohio State game. Going to pull a extra all-nighter with staying up late recording that one. Not too late, but I can appreciate you having me on enough, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, Burke. We appreciate it. We appreciate all of you for listening and watching. Have a good one.